Hello, I'm Diane Doorman. I'm an instructor in the Language Literacy and Special Education Department at Rowan University's College of Education. Most people associate a flipped classroom as being the opposite of a traditional classroom, where in a traditional classroom the students may do some work outside, then they come into the classroom and expect a lecture and a review and a possible discussion. At the university level, when I flip the classroom, their assignments are to be read for understanding prior to entering, and then when we meet as a group, it becomes a laboratory where they can immediately apply the understandings they've gathered from the readings. If you were at a high school or an elementary level, it would be the same as they would be doing their homework in the classroom as opposed to doing it at home. Just about everything that is accessible to the average student, laptops, smartphones, Blackboard, they're the primary. Of course, we pull in video off the internet. Through Blackboard, I do mashups, and I've gone out to use several other available software programs that are out there like Powtoons just to keep things interesting. Well, in particular, this method is being employed in a course called differentiated instruction. Although the term has been around since the 70s, it's a relatively new concept to educators. And the feedback I was getting from supervisors of our clinical practice candidates in the field was they could define differentiated instruction, they could even select strategies, but they couldn't put the two of them together and implement them into improving the students' access to learning. Once I heard that, I realized that while giving them concepts and theory and background knowledge is wonderful, it's worthless if they can't apply it. So I decided this past fall that I would initiate a flipped classroom, which just knocked everyone off their pins, including the students. The first semester in the fall, I took a month to gradually wean them from their traditional educational classroom in college or university to a flipped classroom. I took a comfort survey at the beginning, during the middle, and at the end of each of the sessions that I've done, and what I see is that the comfort level grows as the students become accustomed to it. The end product is that not only will they have concepts and theory, but they'll also be able to readily apply them. They're going to be comfortable enough to go back to them and use them. Well, I used a lot of information I gathered from developing an online course. Timing is very important. You don't want them to be content deep for more than 10 or 15 minutes because they're going to lose focus whether they're in your classroom or they're not. They're doing their independent work. So it's keeping things short. It's changing up the intensity of the work that has to be read or whatever has to be done. And then that same intensity change up mirrors itself when they come in to meet as a group in the laboratory. Actually, they get online assignments every single week, and they are timed per minute as per the university's 3 minutes for every minute in class. So I kind of figure, block it out. We only meet once a week. So I then figure out, okay, how could they do this in 15 to 20 minutes 4 or 5 nights in a row so that it's not too overwhelming for them. It can be anything from looking at a video to researching on the internet to cross-referencing things. I'm at the point now where I'm going to ask them to make a mashup of both video and content regarding addressing the exceptional areas of learning which go from the very gifted to the very cognitively impaired. Yes, most professors are not of the technological generation. Our students are. I know a lot of professors don't want to even have smartphones in the room or laptops in the room. How do you know they're where they're supposed to be? Well, you can rearrange the room in a way that you can see exactly where the students are at all times. But more importantly, once the students accept the fact that, okay, I'm going to use my smartphone, but at this particular time, I'm using it to learn from, they're going to go to it anyway. So why not utilize it? Students are doing it in the classroom. It's a quick way to get answers where everybody can submit their answer and what the percentages are, and it's the way they communicate. So yes, we should be as professors communicating in the way our students communicate if we want to give them full access to learning. Yes, because it's a new literacy that has to be developed within our students. Not everything on the internet is true. Mm-hmm. And just using that technology, it's a whole new repertoire of strategies they're going to have to develop and of criteria they're going to have to establish as to what is acceptable and not acceptable, and the only way to do that is practice. Yes, in fact, it even allows time for one-on-one conferencing with the students, particularly while the others are involved in projects, which then furthers their understanding and eliminates a lot of the frustration that occurs. For this particular course, yes, it won't work in all courses. It depends on how heavy the content area you're trying to cover is and whether or not it is extremely abstract or extremely concrete. The concept of DI is very abstract. We have a group of students who are used to a single correct answer, true, false, multiple choice, fill in the blank. In order to successfully implement differentiated instruction, you have to be able to think outside the box. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to think on your feet. And these are all things that you can do in a flipped classroom, where in a formal classroom, they may be considered disruptive. It took them about 4.5 to 5 weeks the first time to adjust it. The second time I ran the flipped classroom, there was no adjustment at all. They were ready to go. Word had spread. Things are going to be different. Yes, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, but they would come up, bad weather didn't matter, they were there. And recently, when we've had about a very bad weather where the university has been closed, I was able to then upload onto Blackboard the things that we were going to do in the classroom, and they were laid out in a way that allowed them to experience them at home, and then we brought them in and we reviewed them as a group. What are the pluses, what are the minuses, how would you change it, why did it work for you and it didn't work for someone else. So they really get to take things apart and examine them and become intimately familiar with all the good aspects of designing differentiated instruction. I'm a positive person, and one of DI's is a positive approach. We support positive behavior supports. That's incorporated into the course. I think the only negative that I've heard the students say is, wow, this is the first time I've been responsible for reading to understand something, not just reading it to get the assignment done. And that's placing a lot more responsibility for their learning on their shoulders, which they're not used to. Oh no, it's a lot of work. Not only do I have to come up with all the different activities that occur in the laboratory, one day it may be 3, another day it may be 6, another day it may be 4. I have to run through all the activities to be sure that they are concretely connected to the abstract concepts I'm trying to get them to apply. I have to time them. I have to be sure that they're going to fit within, the day. There's actually more preparation than for a regular class, because we're not talking about throwing up a PowerPoint and running it again and again. Everything is fresh and new every week. And because you're constantly using data, as I do in differentiated instruction, every day they give me an exit ticket and I read through those, and based on what they've gotten out of that particular laboratory, then that tells me, okay, in the next laboratory we need to revisit this, but we can move ahead on this. So it's also very data driven. And if you're not inclined to be a very creative person, it can be highly challenging. I think I would try it simply because in about 2020, they say our classrooms as we know them will no longer exist. So we have to get used to different contexts of teaching and learning. And just like differentiated instruction is a, quote, supposed new term that's been around from the 70s, technically the flipped classroom was called in the 50s the inverted classroom, so that's been around a really long time too. But we are learning that we have to do more customization of the content because our students are coming with greater diversities, cultural diversities, intellectual diversities, different learning capacities, and you always have to add tools to your bag of tricks. And I think flipped classroom is just one of those tools that in some courses it's going to be very beneficial, and in others it may be a moot point. But I don't think you should deny it without trying it. Well, after doing it the first time, I did figure out that as I gave in my Powtoon for the second time, that I did deliberate divisions within the flipped classroom. We spend 1/3 on reviewing the material very briefly, and not in a direct regurgitation method that would normally be done. And then we spend the middle third on the activities, whatever they happen to be is going on in the laboratory. And for each activity, there is an evaluative response sheet for the students to fill out. And then the last third, we wrap up and review. And I constantly do whatever is done that day. I constantly link it all the way back to the first laboratory so that they can see this chain is being developed of events that is leading them to become skilled at designing and implementing differentiated instruction.
Okay, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.